Sabalenka, that's her name. I'm bringing her up because even though she was the #1 player in the world, I don't think she should be that way now, not after this loss. It should be you. But I'm asking, what is her problem?
Stephen A. Smith simply lost it. Additionally, neither a football coach nor a basketball player was his objective this time. The tennis player Aryna Sabalenka was the target of the legendary sports media personality. She chose to put herself in the same conversation as Novak Djokovic and Stephen A. after making a comparison that caused people to raise their eyebrows worldwide. The reaction was harsh. The internet erupted with reactions to the hot takes. Do you believe that comparing herself to Novak Djokovic was inappropriate for Aryna Sabalenka? Stephen A. Smith has a reputation for taking offense at athletes who make inconsistent statements, and this time he really delivered. The current world #1 in women's tennis, Aryna Sabalenka, compared her circumstances to the career and legacy of Novak Djokovic. After hearing such remarks, Stephen A. concluded that everyone needed to hear a reality check that no one anticipated.
Somebody got to ask this question. She came across as a very sore loser after she lost to you. What is up with her, and how much of a motivation was it that you were going up against her as opposed to just being in a title match?
Here, let's establish the scenario. In tennis, Aryna Sabalenka has had an amazing run. Grand Slam championships have been won by her. She has earned her place at the top of the standings by dominating the competition. No one can deny that. However, she concluded that her experience was comparable to that of Novak Djokovic during his illustrious career at some point. That's where everything started to spiral out of control. Never one to back down when he sensed his trouble, Stephen A. Smith went all out. He explained why the comparison doesn't work, why it's actually kind of absurd, and why Aryna might want to stop trying to place herself in the same category as one of the all-time great tennis players. The finest thing is that he used that signature to accomplish it. Stephen's energy makes everything seem 10 times more dramatic than it actually is. Aryna's comparison focused on feeling undervalued or dealing with difficulties that she believed were comparable to those faced by Djokovic. Now, throughout his career, Novak Djokovic has encountered real challenges. He grew up in the age of two players who were already regarded as all-time greats, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. He had to struggle to gain any respect at all. He had to cope with groups of people who openly opposed him. He was criticized for his celebrations, demeanor, and style of play. The man must have earned every one of his admirers. Stephen A. noted that Aryna's circumstances are very different from those. She's not competing in a time when two unchallenged icons stand in the way of her success. She doesn't have to deal with antagonistic spectators at every significant competition. She's not battling for the tennis community's basic respect. In actuality, she has been recognized for her accomplishments very regularly. When examined closely, the parallel just falls apart. The way Stephen A. broke down his response was what made it so amusing. He went beyond just stating that the comparison was incorrect. He made sure everyone realized that you can't just put your name next to an all-time great and act as though the circumstances are the same. By providing examples, bringing receipts, and outlining exactly why it was incorrect. Sports don't operate like that. Legacy does not operate like that. Respect does not operate like that. The whole thing was a huge hit on the internet. Fans of tennis were divided. Some defended Aryna, claiming that people were treating her too harshly or that she was taken out of context. Others agreed with Stephen A., pointing out that comparing yourself to legends when you haven't yet attained that rank is a surefire way to lose credibility. Because Stephen A. Smith going off on someone is always interesting, regardless of the sport you watch. Sports fans from other sports also jumped in. The problem with comparing oneself to the greatest of all time is this: they must be earned. You can't just declare one day that your professional path is comparable to someone who's dominated the sport for more than 10 years and won more than 20 Grand Slam titles. Players have come and gone while Novak Djokovic has dominated men's tennis for such a long time. He has outlived competition from entire generations. He has triumphed in every situation, on every surface, and against every playing style. That's what makes him an all-time great. Aryna Sabalenka is talented, no doubt. She has authority. She is skilled. Her ranking is supported by the results. But 2 or 3 years of dominant play doesn't place you in the same conversation with someone who has been doing it for 15 years. That's just math. That's just the way things are. And anyone who would listen was more than welcome to hear Stephen A. They contribute their own viewpoints. They disagree on whether the criticism was justified and what the comparison actually meant. Some fans find it frustrating because the entire situation could have been prevented. None of this would have occurred if Aryna had simply discussed her personal story without attempting to relate it to Djokovic. She could have talked about her struggles, her development, and her future aspirations without drawing comparisons to one of the all-time great players. However, athletes can become engrossed in the moment or believe they must make audacious claims in order to attract attention. This is what occurs when those audacious claims don't quite have the desired effect. Additionally, Stephen A. brought out an issue that is frequently missed in these conversations. Being great involves more than just winning. It matters how you prevail, who you defeat, what you conquer, and how long you maintain that caliber of performance. Djokovic has triumphed in ways that didn't seem imaginable. In the Grand Slam finals, he overcame a deficit of match points. He has defeated elite athletes on their preferred surfaces. For years at a time, he has ruled the standings. Being the top player for a year or two is not the same as that level of excellence. This is a rather straightforward lesson for all athletes. Let your game speak for itself. Create a lasting legacy by performing consistently and let others determine your place among the greatest of all time. Making those parallels yourself exposes you to criticism that may have been avoided, particularly in the early stages of your career. Concentrate on winning. Concentrate on getting better. Concentrate on solidifying your position in the sport. If you're truly at that level, the comparisons will come easily. The fact that Stephen A. isn't a tennis expert adds even more intrigue to this. Although he's most known for covering basketball and football, this practically strengthens his argument because it demonstrates that this isn't merely an insider tennis dispute. This resonated with sports enthusiasts in general. All sports are affected by the notion that someone would compare themselves to an all-time great without having earned that comparison. It will be fascinating to observe the consequences of this. Does Aryna reiterate what she said? Does she try to walk it back a bit and clarify what she meant? Does she ignore it entirely and concentrate just on her tennis? How she responds to this circumstance might truly affect how people perceive her in the future. People will respect her if she responds politely and admits that perhaps the comparison was made too soon. It can get worse if she becomes defensive. The fact that Stephen A. has covered sports long enough to witness true excellence lends him credibility on this matter. He has seen athletes create their legacies from the ground up. He has witnessed the difference between someone who does well for a few years and someone who excels for 10. He has the right to point out illogical parallels, and he did just that in this instance. This is the main point. Aryna Sabalenka has an outstanding record and is a fantastic tennis player. One of the best tennis players of all time, Novak Djokovic, has an impressive resume. You will be called out if you pretend that they are the same thing. What Stephen A. does best is what he did. Something didn't make sense to him. He bisected it and ensured that everyone knew why it didn't work. In response to Aryna Sabalenka's Djokovic comparison, Stephen A. Smith delivered the facts and the heat. When you attempt to claim a legacy before you have truly built it, this is what occurs. This is a straightforward lesson. Make your comparisons based on your actions rather than your words. Respect will follow if you let your performance speak for itself. For more sports stuff that doesn't retain your attention, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like this analysis.
Smith, bless his soul, explained that math. Stephen A.'s delivery of this viewpoint was the pinnacle of sports media entertainment. His pauses were dramatic. He was the one with the increasing volume. Although you couldn't see his hand movements on the radio, you could hear them in his voice. He made it apparent that this was more than a little argument. This was a basic misconception about what it takes to be regarded as tennis royalty. The crazy thing is that Aryna didn't even have to draw this analogy. On its own, her career is fantastic. The Australian Open has been won by her. She has held the top spot in the world. Everyone she has had to defeat has been defeated by her. Without attempting to link a legacy to anyone else's, it was developing naturally. However, that is the issue with comparisons. People will hold you to that standard if you produce them. If you claim to be similar to Djokovic, they will expect to anticipate Djokovic-level success and durability. In his response, Stephen A. also mentioned a very significant point. He discussed the need for sportsmen to exercise caution when crafting narratives. It may be tough to live up to the expectations you set when you compare yourself to an all-time great. You're placing unnecessary strain on yourself. You're making yourself vulnerable to criticism that you could have prevented. Astute athletes let others draw the comparisons and let their performance speak for itself. Additionally, the analogy fails to acknowledge the particular challenges Djokovic had that set his journey apart. He was facing more than simply elite athletes. He was playing against well-liked players who were already regarded by the tennis community as the faces of the sport. Everyone admired Federer's grace and elegance. Nadal was a hero because of his supremacy on the clay court and his warrior mindset. While those two were already regarded as legends, Djokovic had to establish his own brand. That is not at all like the circumstances that any modern women's tennis player faces. Stephen A. took care to make it clear that he wasn't disparaging Aryna's achievements. Where credit was due, he gave it to her. He recognized her abilities and results. But he also made it abundantly evident that you cannot be compared to someone like Djokovic based on skill and performance alone. Being regarded as one of the greatest of all time requires a certain level of perseverance, supremacy throughout several eras, and overcoming adversity. Simply stating that you belong in that discourse won't speed up that process. The responses from commentators and other tennis players were also fascinating. Some chose to remain silent, most likely to avoid becoming embroiled in the dispute. Others quietly agreed with Stephen A.'s perspective without criticizing Aryna outright. Even the few people who stood up for her were not very strong. When someone hasn't faced quite the same level of regular competition and has only been at the top for a small portion of the time, it's difficult to make a compelling case for them being like Djokovic. The risk of sportsmen comparing themselves to superstars before their careers are over is what this whole issue really underlines. Aryna Sabalenka is still in action. She still has years ahead of her. She might go on to win 10 more Grand Slams and be compared to the greatest of all time. But drawing that connection at this time, when she is still establishing her legacy, only serves to provoke doubt and criticism. It's like saying you're the greatest before you've really demonstrated it over time. Additionally, Stephen A. Smith's remark serves as a reminder of why he is among the most well-known figures in sports media. He doesn't hesitate to point out what he believes to be absurd. Whether it's a popular opinion or not, doesn't matter to him. Even if you don't agree with him, he expresses what he believes must be said in an entertaining way. Moments like these are precisely why people tune in to hear what he has to say, because that is his brand. Additionally, the timing of this whole debate is also interesting. It took place at a time when tennis was undergoing some changes. In men's tennis, the old guard is beginning to retire. Several players have won majors in the very competitive women's game. There's a feeling that tennis is changing, and it's possible that Aryna thought this was her chance to establish herself as the next big thing. But it rarely turns out the way sportsmen want it to when they try to claim that position by comparing themselves to someone from a previous generation. Let's talk about the real challenges Djokovic faced that made his journey so exceptional. His medical timeouts were criticized early in his career. They doubted his fitness level. He was accused of fabricating injuries. He had to prove repeatedly that he belonged at the top. People continued to favor Federer and Nadal when he started winning major slams. Before the tennis community acknowledged that Djokovic was on par with them, he had to perform consistently for years. Aryna or most of the current players have never encountered that situation. Stephen A.'s remark received widespread media attention. It was picked up by sports websites, tennis bloggers discussed it, reactions and videos filled social media. That is the Stephen A. impact. When he goes off on something, it becomes more than just what he said. It starts a conversation. Whether he's right or wrong, it's a topic of discussion.